What up, everybody? We're gonna do a little something different here. I mean, I've done this before when we were doing these comments before with the FDA. And what am I talking about? I am talking about this. Um, the FDA is asking for comments for the World Health Organization, and ultimately, this could lead to the United Nations changing the schedule on cannabis. You know, as far as this comment thing goes, it's not just about cannabis, it's about all these other things too. So basically, I'm just going to go ahead and read my comment, and then maybe I'm going to read a few of these other comments just to give everybody a feeling of the temperature in the room, and maybe encourage anybody that still hasn't made a comment to go make a comment. I mean, why not? You know, like I said before in the other video I made about this, like, you can make any comment you want. You could just be up, yo dude, I smash 3 dabs a day and I'm fine. You know, whatever, it doesn't matter. Or you can get more technical about it, and you know, whatever. I you know where I'm going with it, so let me go ahead and read you that, and then we'll go from there. So it goes like this. I run a channel on YouTube called The Daily Dope Show, where I chronicle the history of the end of the drug war. Each clip is an important story that depicts another cut in the death of 1,000 cuts that will bleed the drug war out. Removing cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act is the only sensible step to take at this time. Only criminal elements of corruption and power seek to maintain the prohibition on cannabis. The jury is in. Tens of thousands of peer-reviewed studies, including decades of detailed studies in Israel, have more than proven the efficacy of whole plant cannabis as a medicine that works better than pharma on a myriad of ailments and conditions with very little side effects. As for synthesizing compounds from the plant and using organic and chemically derived cannabinoids for medicine and supplements, there's no reason why there can't be both. And that's just like a slap to the whole idea that we're gonna like synthesize the molecules out and just make things based on re-putting together a bunch of molecules made in the lab, because you know that's what the FDA does, and that's what everything has always been done to plants. They've always been churned into pills and all this other stuff. But you know, you can go ahead and do that. We can still do what we do. All right, get it out of there. Besides cannabis, the entire Controlled Substances Act, and if nothing else, Schedule 1, should be terminated so that the world can come together and find healthcare-based solutions to the global drug problem, rather than continuing the racist and corrupt authoritarian police model. Strict penalties for possession and dealing need to be abolished immediately in the wake of massive human rights violations seen in countries around the globe, from the Philippines to Saudi Arabia to America and everywhere in between. The drug war is a failure, and the multiple ways in which it has caused far more harm than harm reduction is once again documented in a report made by the International Drug Policy Consortium. I highly encourage the review board to read this report and decide for yourselves if continuing these policies going forward into the 21st century is a wise decision. And I link the report, this report that I've already, you know, reported on. The IDPC report, which chronicles a decade of the United Nations attempt to abolish drugs through, you know, the policies that we're all familiar with. And quite frankly, we're talking about massive human rights violations from, you know, policing agencies violating women's rights, minority women basically getting, unspeakable stuff. Unspeakable things are happening in the drug war. We know this. In the drug war, what has it done? It hasn't done anything to curb the drugs. All right, like you have all, oh, but we got all these drugs and we have to put them in, the strictest category so that if anyone gets caught with them, they get the harshest penalties. Well, that didn't deter anybody from doing any of these drugs. And now the drugs are even, every outcome that you would think that the drug war would have has been a failure, 100%. And it's just another place where, another breeding ground for massive amounts of corruption. So that's my comment, and I'm sticking to it. Here's a preview of my comment. And I read and understand that I am filing a document into the official docket. Any personal information, including in my comment, will be publicly viewable on the web. Cool. I already did make a comment. This, I think I might take a screenshot of this or something, just for future references. So, yeah. Make sure the whole comment's there. This thing. Alright. Alright, done. And, you just hit that submit button. And bada bing, bada boom. There's a comment number there. I'm just going to leave that page open so I can look at that later and document it. And now let's go through some other comments, shall we? Let's see. So far, yeah, we're only at the 7-minute mark. We're going to go ahead and read some comments. So a lot of the I like the comments that are quick and to the point, because every time you see one, it's like there's a good point, and I'm sure that some other people put together like stuff like I did, or even longer, where it's like you have many points that are made. I tried to stick to one main point, like the drug war is bullshit, injustice is everywhere all around, and legalizing marijuana is just an obvious no-brainer. And that's what this one. Marijuana is harmless. God-given herb, decriminalize it. And that comment is from Angela Barrick. And I will be reading your name, so if you included your name in the comment, I don't know if you expected this to happen, so if someone is, sorry if you didn't want that to happen, but whatever. This is from Anonymous. Marijuana in all forms should be legalized to recreational use. And then you get comments like this one, where it's pretty cool. This is from Chet Michaels. And so, keeping in mind that this is for the schedule defined in the WHO's Convention on Psychotropic Substances and not our local laws, here are some of my opinions relating to the substances you ask for comments on. To briefly explain my frame of mind for my opinions, I believe that the current Schedule 1 of the Convention of Psychotropic Substances is overly restrictive and impedes medical research, and should only be used on substances that have actual evidence of excessive social harm, and ideally reserved for substances with high potential of fatal overdosing and physical addiction. I am mildly versed in international drug control treaties and our own federal statutory laws, but am by no means a medical or legal expert. For ABD, Fubunica, and all these other things here that I'm not going to, it's just a bunch of letters put together in my opinion. For synthetic cannabinoids, I would recommend them being put into Schedule 2. They appear to pose too high of a health risk to be left unregulated, but I don't believe they have shown themselves to be harmful enough yet to put the additional restrictions of Schedule 1 and stifle medical research with them. For cyclopropyl fentanyl, methoxyacetyl fentanyl, and orthofluorofentanyl, parafluorobutyrfentanyl, and paramethylxybutyrfentanyl, and the 5 fentanyls. I believe these need to end up in Schedule 2. The only reason I recommend not putting them in Schedule 1 is because of the ease of manufacture. I don't think the distinction would actually curb illegal importation or manufacturing in the United States. but I do think there is a potential of one of the substances being medically superior product to an existing opioid and want to keep the door into research open. For the United States Controlled Substances Law, I would recommend all 5B in Schedule 1 though. For N-ethylpentylene, I would recommend placing it into Schedule 2. The substance will likely fall out of use with minimal regulatory hurdles due to its main recreational benefit over the substances being its legality. The documented health issues associated with this substance seems most related to it being passed off as MDMA and not necessarily any innate social risk. For tramadol, I think placing it on Schedule 3 would be most appropriate. There definitely seems to be slowly rising issue with its this substance globally, with the extra restrictions on trade may help curb. For pregabalin, I don't think it warrants being scheduled at this time, where there does seem to be rising recreational and self-medicating use. I haven't really seen much social harm caused by these yet. I will say that while we're on the topic, if you're truly adamant about regulating pregabalin, phenibut is similar substance that's use in the United States is on the rise. I will give caution over restricting these though. Banning drugs does not cure their users, and I could see their replacements being far worse. For cannabis, I believe it and its byproducts should be removed from scheduling. The substance doesn't represent a significant enough health risk to warrant international banning, and I feel restrictions on its use and trade should be left to individual nations. As a closing comment, even though it isn't on the list, I believe MDMA should be lowered to Schedule 2. To me, there is sufficient evidence that medical use from the success in clinical trials, and believe we should be getting out in front of it, and to start doing the work needed to allow its legal use in medicine. Interesting comment indeed. And then here's one from Matthew Cullum. Marijuana should be legal. Here's one from Anonymous. The fact that cannabis is even being reviewed at the same level as fentanyl and other drugs that have killed shows how poorly we have evaluated the true effects of this plant. It is a plant that has helped millions of people with no deaths and no extreme side effects. There is no reason to have cannabis as a scheduled drug beyond the fact that pharmaceutical companies and those in their pockets have done so much to keep the plant that proves to be helpful out of the hands of those who need it the most. Cannabis is no more or less likely addictive. Cannabis is no more and likely less addictive than caffeine and sugar, let alone alcohol, and should not be restricted at the federal or world level. It is a travesty that if it has been withheld and been a way to line the pockets of private prisons and jails everywhere. Here we go, another Anonymous. Being that the government has held a patent on cannabis for as long as it has, you can no longer use the excuse that it has no beneficial impact on the human body. Unlike the other actual drugs listed above, which should be scheduled and illegal, cannabis should be available to the public in the same manner that alcohol and tobacco are. With reasonable standards in reference to the already thriving cannabis industry agreed upon by the people, not ridiculous rule and regulations set by current lawmakers intending to line their own pockets. I like that comment. This is by Jason Berman. Medical use of cannabis should be legalized immediately. The DEA should immediately redefine the minimum percentage of THC in the product to 1% in order to be considered a controlled substance. Decriminalization of recreational cannabis use reduces crime. There's a link below to a Guardian article for that. And therefore, decriminalization of recreational cannabis use, possession, and cultivation should take effect immediately, followed by the legalization and taxation to take place according to a timetable consistent with time required to work out all the regulatory and fiscal details. Legalization should include full deregulation of laws regarding banking, investment, W-2 employment, import, export, transportation across state lines for registered cannabis businesses. Hemp should be classified to allow for legalization of oral consumption of hemp products containing CBD and other non-mind-altering cannabinoids. Thank you, Jason Berman. Suzanne McKenna says, oh wait, it's an attachment. Didn't I? Alright, hold on. I'll get to that in a second. It's coming up. But that was Susan Brennan again. Never mind, Susan McKenna. I'm sorry. That comment will be getting read momentarily. So here we have another one, and this one's from Lori Self. I'm 56. I suffer from fibromyalgia, disc herniations, and spinal stenosis, causing numbness in my legs, dizziness, and loss of balance. This has been ongoing for 6.5 years. I've been prescribed almost every opioid available, and nothing helps me long term. As a last resort, I tried cannabis a year ago and was amazed at the relief it provided. CBD oil has helped me tremendously to regain my quality of life. It's effective, affordable, and I've experienced no side effects. My name is Susan Maples, and I am a 44-year-old mother and grandmother from Baxton Springs, Kansas. I am writing you in regards to my opinion on the scheduling of CBD and cannabis. While I do not currently use either substance, I have in the past and can say that CBD carries no sort of, quote, high whatsoever. In my opinion, it is my opinion on that CBD should be unscheduled or at the very least remain the least restrictive category and be available for use without a prescription. That was Susan Mapes. And here's a comment from Brittany Hoblitzel. Marijuana should be legal. Another one from Anonymous. I'm a healthcare professional, and although I do not use cannabis myself, I believe that it is time to end the prohibition on this plant. I am a staunch conservative and voted for our current president, but feel very strongly that it's time to stop this unneeded enforcement of cannabis. I run into patients on a daily basis who use cannabis both medicinally and recreationally and have firsthand effects. I've seen firsthand effects of this substance and many others that are much more serious, with more serious consequences such as alcohol, heroin, opiates, and more. Please take time to really study this subject matter and end this prohibition once and for all and take the money out of the hands of cartels and illegal drug dealers. It is my hope that we can expand freedom, lessen undue arrests, and free those nonviolent offenders whose lives were ruined over cannabis. Earl Parker says marijuana is a beneficial plant that holds several medicinal characteristics. By removing it from Schedule 1, you open a whole world of possibilities. Aside from medicinal aspect, the revenues generated would greatly benefit our struggling economy and would help tremendously with the national deficit and relieve a lot of our prison overcrowding problems. It is time for you lawmakers to pull your heads out of the sand. This is a new day and time. This is the 21st century, and you are holding us back from advancing in the world. Get with the program, or you all could find yourselves in the unemployment line. I like that comment. It sounded kind of like mine. And alright, so here's this letter from Susan McKenna, PhD. I am writing you as a neuroscientist and chronic pain patient that has chosen to stop using opioids. She goes on to talk about using fentanyl, and she was afraid that she might overdose when she was using opioids. And then she talks about how chronic pain affects more people than cancer, diabetes, heart attacks, and strokes combined. And then chronic pain can be a death sentence. A lot of people commit suicide. And as a matter of fact, in 2014, approximately 43,000 suicides were reported, over twice the number of deaths attributed to the opioid epidemic. And these are people that committed suicide because they had chronic pain. And they commit suicide at roughly twice the rate of the general population. There is an alternative to treating chronic pain with dangerous addictive opioid medications. The NASEM recently conducted a wide-ranging review of the recent medical literature on the health effects of cannabis and cannabinoids. The report concluded that there was conclusive or substantial evidence that cannabis and cannabinoids are effective for the treatment of pain in adults, chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting, spasticity associated with MS, and seizure disorders. I mean, come on. We know all four of those. It's like no shit, Sherlock style. Like we are there. Come on, FDA. Come on, World Health Organization. Come on, United Nations. Come on, Commission on, psychotropic drugs. You have nowhere to go. And this is a neuroscientist, Susan E. McKenna, PhD, from Raleigh, North Carolina. And go ahead and realize that this is what's going on, guys. There's no negative comments. I've been looking through here. Now, granted, I did just pull these comments that I'm reading from the first page that popped up, and a lot of people, if you watch this video right off, you might have read some of the same comments. Who knows? But like I said, I looked for my comment through the database searching feature and whatnot, couldn't find it. Also looked all throughout for a negative comment, and as I was looking, I found a couple more comments that I might have wanted to include, but in the interest of time, I'm going to try to keep this video basically under a half hour. And if you don't like continuing, you can drop out anytime you want on these comments. But here's another comment. This one's from Mickey Baker. In my experience, cannabis is harmless when used by a responsible adult, whether for medical or recreational reasons. Although I am not currently a user of cannabis, I was as a young adult. The only reason I no longer partake is the risk of incarceration. I witnessed cannabis use through my whole adult life, and the only real negative effect is the legal problems associated with the plant. Even habitual users that I know seem to lack any negative side effects other than the occasional run-ins with the law. It should be legal without restriction, as with all other naturally occurring plants. From Anonymous, cannabis and CBD are completely natural products. They have so many benefits in pain relief, stress relief, and sleep aid, just to name a few. Cannabis is far less dangerous than alcohol in every way. The effects of alcohol are far stronger and impair the individual much more than cannabis. And I mean, maybe that's a testament to all the people that continuously try to make comparisons to cannabis and alcohol, or they just straight up give you the effects of cannabis as if it was alcohol. Like, oh yeah, it makes you drive, it impairs your driving big time. It makes it so you are lazy and slurred speech, just every effect of alcohol. Unfortunately, there's nothing like cannabis and alcohol. There's no similarities whatsoever with them. There's nothing. James Midkiff. As a concerned citizen, I believe we should absolutely legalize, tax, and sensibly regulate marijuana like we do alcohol and tobacco. Studies show marijuana to be much less addictive and much healthier than alcohol or tobacco. Prohibiting marijuana at the federal level has been a grave mistake that has restricted our freedoms, as we have incarcerated huge swaths of our communities under the terribly misinformed drug war. America should take the lead on promoting marijuana legalization, not only because it can be an enormous cash crop, but also because we should work to reverse the negative effects of the drug war that we have exported abroad. Sure, James, except for we're not leading the way. We're about, one country away from being the only country in North America that hasn't legalized it yet. Marijuana should be legal both recreationally and medicinally, says Sean. Alcohol is way more dangerous when used recreationally and has been proven to help patients with seizures, chronic pain, anxiety, among other issues, while being less harmful than many currently available pharmaceutical drugs. Furthermore, taxes from weed sales can be used to fund education, healthcare, transportation, etc. Lastly, marijuana's illegal status only makes the black market for it more profitable, therefore funding drug lords and cartels. Legalizing marijuana would take away this revenue stream. True. I mean, if you listen to El Chapo tell you his life story, he started selling weed, and by the time he got arrested, his weed empire was still 60% of his overall income. Cannabis is a mostly harmless drug, and there is extensive research to back that fact. Fear-mongering and racism have pushed it to Schedule 1 status, and that needs to stop today if America is to become the land of the free once again, says Jackson Adler. And that's all the comments I pulled. Like I said, I ended up stopping around whatever page this is, and let's just go look at some of the headlines. Marijuana should not be illegal, shouldn't be a Schedule 1 drug. Andres Quinos says, I was taught that scheduling was supposed to denote potential medical usefulness of substance and take very other factors into account, such as addictiveness, lethality. Interesting. Let's check this out. As it stands, we have decades of research showing the therapeutic potential. Okay, still positive. Regarding the legalization of Schedule 1 of marijuana, I firmly believe that filling prisons and court systems with marijuana charges is unethical, immoral, and not an informed stance, says Will. Rebecca White, cannabis should not be on Schedule 1. It's an agricultural product and should be treated the same as other products in the same nature. John Rayford says, I strongly support the declassification and legalization of cannabis in its natural state, as well as all extracts from the plant. In my experience, I have never seen anyone hooked. Comment from William Shelbourne. Do or reschedule a cannabis plant and resin. The current scheduling has shown to not match up with the science of this helpful plant. U.S. patents demonstrating health promoting and just non-stop, one after the other. Here's Chuck Andrews. I'm a disabled veteran with PTSD, TBI, and epilepsy. I'm on 3 medications for my refractory epilepsy and have a vagus nerve stimulator. I use marijuana more for PTS and pain, etc., etc. It is my opinion that all synthetic cannabinoids should be classified under Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act. Really? This is Steve H. These synthetic substances are causing deaths and overdoses at an alarming scale and are available almost everywhere. Their invention and appeal is all due to the illegality of cannabis plant and its naturally occurring compounds. Declassify all parts of the cannabis plant and all the derivatives of its naturally occurring cannabinoids, including the cultivation of cannabis and industrial hemp. So the only problem I have with that comment is that I just don't believe in Schedule 1. I don't think prohibiting things is going to solve anything. Those synthetic cannabinoids will just be replaced by new synthetic cannabinoids that have a different molecule. And what you were talking about, people overdosing on them, it was actually when the banned one had to get adulterated so that it was shippable. What'd they adulterate it with? Fucking rat poison or, heart medication, just diet supplements. It's just, weird. And you'd be hard pressed, I guess, to look through these thousands and thousands of comments and find anybody out there that's trying to say keep cannabis in schedule. You just aren't going to find it in here, man. It's just not, there's just not anybody saying that. And furthermore, these comments, and I'm surprised I found one that wasn't like this, but all these comments are basically like about the cannabis and how it should not be on Schedule 1 and how it's, ridiculous, and then people's personal stories, and you just don't see it. And you see people talking about more like, hey, we want all these psychedelics on Schedule 1 taken off. I've seen some comments like that. There just isn't any comments talking about cannabis being on Schedule 1. Like, yes, it should be on Schedule 1. That is the correct place for it to be. And then have some kind of bull crap, whatever they're gonna follow that up with. So I'm wondering if, someone like Kevin Sabat made a comment. Who knows? I highly doubt he made a comment. No, nope, he didn't make one. So we didn't find anybody from the prohibitionist circles by name when I searched the database earlier, just looking. Maybe they're in there, maybe they're not. And like I said, I couldn't even find my other comment that I already submitted like a week ago or whatever, whenever I made that last video. Couldn't find it, so who knows if what's going on with this database search feature, if it's really that good. But for sure, I have been looking through here and I simply cannot find any negative comments. I mean, the worst you're going to find is, I believe cannabis should be lowered to Schedule 2. Or we should regulate the hell out of it, but yeah, it shouldn't be illegal. That's about as hardcore as you're going to get. And these comments can go up uncontested. So if the prohibitionists wanted to, they could pepper this whole like database full of comments like, marijuana's bad, it can make you whatever. I don't know. I still haven't figured out what the harm for marijuana is because no one's told me. So I don't really know what they're talking about. I've been using cannabis for 30 plus years, and if you think do I sound like it ruined my brain or whatever? So yeah, I thought that would be a negative one, but it turns out it wasn't. It's just a long-winded version of the same shit that I said. I'm done looking for negative ones. I really tried. I couldn't find anything. I mean, you find these ones like this. I think it's absolutely criminal that marijuana has been proven to have so many medical benefits, yet stays classified as an illegal substance with no medical benefits. That's like the general consensus over here. So I'll leave a link in the description for you to go make your comment if you already haven't, or just go by there and read them if you want. That's all I got on this situation right now. We'll check back on it later maybe and see if we can't break this number. Like, where was this number at here? We're at 9,623 comments received. And my experience with that there is that if there is more comments, you're not going to see that number change until sometime tomorrow maybe. It's weird how this database updates and new comments appear. My comment didn't appear when I first made it, and I kept checking for it. It didn't appear like for the first 12 hours that I looked for it, so I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, go make a comment and go read a few more. Look for those negative ones and laugh at them, because there's no reason that and believe me, this is 10,000 comments and they're all like this. There's no way they can ignore that the general consensus is that, yo, duh, cannabis on Schedule 1. Who is the person that's going to get up there and defend that? That's my only question. Alright, that's all I got, guys. Have a good one.